Hi, I'm Lindy Whitten. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm just going to be working on completing a painting I started as a demo for my students in my pastel class this morning. So it's mainly for them, but if you'd like to watch, go ahead and join me. I started off just by demonstrating the shapes, and then I wanted to finish the painting for them, but I wanted them to have time to paint too, so I said I'd pop on home, do a video of it and post it on YouTube. So if you're not in my class and you'd like to watch the end of the painting, feel free, but that's why it's half completed already. My next demonstration is going to be of mountains. I've had a request from a viewer, so I'll be doing that and posting it early next week. If I want to use the whole photo as the reference and paint it as is, I just pop it up into the corner of my paper, put a ruler through there, and it comes out at that point there, so I know that a line from there and along there will be the same proportion as that reference. But then if I cut it down further, which I did in this case, then need to move it across. And I want it to come like so. Then the ruler goes on from corner to corner, and that's where it stops down there, so I know that that's the drop line from there and the drop line from there, and I know that my proportions are correct. So that's an easy way to scale your reference photo onto the piece of paper that you're using, because it won't always be the size that you want. Okay, I'll get on to work now. So what I want to do is just work into these pines here, and I'm just going around with some different colours. I'm putting in here some quite dark greens and just moving my hand down the page like so. So I just want to keep moving in and out of that tree with different colours of green, using the warmer and the cooler greens, and I'll be putting in some darker really browny colours too in there, but in the darks and the shadows, just to give it a little bit of variety. Maybe some purples, and at the same time I'll go over here and just put a few more colours in there. Around the edges it'll be a few little spots of lighter around the edges. But really it's a pine, so it's going to be darker coloured there. So I'll keep going back and forth with the darks till I think I've got it right. And I've put in just those broad masses, and now what I'm doing is putting in some spiky bits for the individual groups of needles coming off the pine. We've got one going a little bit astray there, so, and cover that up. Better. So just some jabby little motions there with my pastel, the very sharp tip of my pastel, just to give me the illusion of those little pine branches coming out and poking into the sky, breaking up the edge of the tree mass a little bit there. This section's just going to be a bit higher than the other, and you can see I'm just breaking up the edges a little bit. As I said to my class this morning, it's hard to get the darks to go over your light, so if you're going to put a dark over a light, you probably need to put it in darker than you even think it needs to go in. So this is an almost black green, and I'll pop some of that in there, and that helps to get the tone that you're after. So I'm putting some of that really dark, very, very dark, almost black green in a few sections of this here, just to give it some real shadowy effects. And I'll just put a little bit of that here and some little edgy bits on those branches of the pine to break that up a little bit too. And then there's some more bits of trees behind the building there. This is a whole lot of rock in here, and then the trees are coming down over it, but there are more trees and shrubs back in there. So I'm just going to just make a few more rocks in there. So I'll just go in with a few greys, so some warm greys and some cooler greys. So here's a warm one, that's a cool grey, but now I'm putting in some warmer ones behind there. The red's going to show through and give me a little bit of warmth coming through in those rocks as well. The rocks kind of slope down here towards the end. So I'm just going to layer in a few different colours there, get those greys just in sort of big blocky masses for the rocks, making some sort of edgy bits as well, then pulling from the edge down into the rest of the mats. Over here it's a bit in shadow, so I need quite a dark to go into here and sort of sculpt around the rock in the shadowed area, putting a little bit more shadows in there. I'd like to warm those shadows up a little bit, so I'm going to put in a deep brown as well, not just that greyed off grey. So I'm just pulling a few sharp edges, put them down into that mass there, and some of these shadows I'm going back into with that brown as well, the little cracks and crannies in the rocks, just to give it a more three-dimensional feeling. So I just want to keep making those rocks forms. Put some little shadows under bits of the rocks there, some shadows on the side, and I want to vary those shadows up a bit, so I'm going in for a bit of purple in some spots there along the very edges, and back in here it's going to have a bit of purple on the edges. Some up here. I'm not trying to get those rocks exactly like there, I'm just trying to get the sense of what the rocks felt like when I was there, so getting those shadows in and making the rocks start to come a little bit alive there. So the forms of the rocks are going in. I need to make those darker behind the rocks as well. So I'm going to do that now before I continue with the rocks. Otherwise, it will be hard to get it in. Again, I need to go in darker than I think I do because I'm going over the light sky. And I'm just scrumbling this around. The edges are a little bit broken there of the tree. Just scrumbling it around down to where it will come in with the... And it's so dense here that I'm not getting any sky holes, so I don't have to worry about leaving bits of the sky to show through those trees because the tree mass is so dense. A little bit jagged around the top there, just to suggest the branches coming out into the sky. Down to the tree. I want to make it not just that sort of boring green, so I'm putting a touch of the warmer reds in there as well, and a few little highlights on some edgy bits as well. I'm going to pop in a couple of those highlights in this one as well, just through a couple of spots of it, and they're more with little smaller jabby motions because I want to just suggest them, just a little bit of a lighter green touch on some of the where the light's showing on it. So there we go, I've got that in. This one should have a few more sky holes, which I haven't put in yet, and I will need to go back and put in. So I'll just take a bit of the sky colour, and a bit of the sky colour, it's quite light there, and just drop in a few odd little slivers of the blue to to suggest where the sky's peeking through the branches. The thing with these is get them fairly irregular, because it's the little negative spaces in between the branches that you're describing, and if you put them very regular, it's not going to look real. Some of them lead in from the edge of the sky there, following the form of the branches. There we go, just a few little bits more, but not much more than that, just a few odd bits. I don't want to get carried away with it. So there's a few bits of the sky showing through there, maybe another couple of bits there, and that's just suggesting the sky showing through the branches there. Now the rock here is lighter and lighter again, lighter until you get into the shadowed area. So this is the lightest area, and so I'm going in with lighter greys there, and I'm going to warm that up a bit. That's sort of a purpley grey, that one. I don't want to warm it up with a more yellowy colour into those rocks, so I'll just mix a bit of yellow by just dragging it over the top. Not going to, I don't want to have too much of it, so just a bit of warmth there. Back in here there's some warmth too, but it's actually deeper and darker. It's more of an ochre colour, so an ochre to red colour. So I'm just popping some of this, same as that background that I'm using almost, so I'm blending the background paper into the top of the rocks there and down through here, so the rocks become a little bit indistinct. I'm going to need to put more trees in there, but you get the sense of they're a bit lighter and redder in there. And this is where the sunlight's hitting. It's almost even a little bit pinky there in patches. So I'm putting a pale pink colour into it as well, and just dragging it over. It's emphasising some areas, and then I'm putting some horizontal marks here because it's kind of cracking up the rock there. So I'm putting a few horizontals in there. That one I'm going to make a little bit greyer as well, so I put in the pink, but then I'm going over it with a bit of grey. And as we come around the corner there, it starts to get a bit greyer. It's got quite a sharp edge there. That's the edge, and it will show up against the background of the tree, so I need to get that in. So this is an edge coming down here. That's quite grey. It's a bit greyer in there behind, as it goes into a bit of shadow behind the shed roof there. And then I need to start blocking in the geometric shapes of those rocks there against the trees. It's gone, needs a little bit of softening up there as well with the pinky sort of colour. And maybe just a touch of the lighter colour showing through on a couple of edges of the rock there. Needs a bit more variety up in there. I've let a little bit of the background show through, but I'm just going to put in a couple of different browns scrumbled over it as well. Oh, I've lost it a little bit there because of the putting that dark over the light. So what I'm doing is taking my fixative and just giving, I'm just shielding off the rest of it with my hand there and giving it a very light spray there, just to darken that area off and help me go back into it again, which I'll be doing in a minute. I need to get some more trees in behind here, and they're going to be fairly dark too, so just mass them in. Move that slightly across and mass it right out to the edge there and around those rocks. There's going to be a few branches coming up through there. So I've got the dark background of the trees in there, and now I want to put in a few branches. So I'm just going to take a grey and give it a quick pull down. Just to get in some branches there and on trunks, and I'll just put in a little bit here as well. That looks like it should be just one tree when I put that one in, so what I'm doing is just pulling a few more darker bits across there to suggest that it's a couple of trees in that area. And just giving it a bit of movement in there. Okay, now the trunks need to have a bit of modelling on them too, so I just need to have a darker side. The sunlight's coming from that side, you can see that by the house, sunlit side, shadowy side. So this is sunlit, the trunks are sunlit, but just behind them will be they'll be slightly in shadow, so I'm just putting a thin line of a darker colour there, and if it runs over the lighter colour some places, that's fine because it's just a bit of shadow hitting the trunks there. So some trunks have gone in. I need more, and if I want to do them a little bit more finely, I can grab I've got some Derwent pastel pencils here. I can just grab one of those out and break. So I'm just using a sort of grey one here to put in a few little branches. There, it's broken again, and I'll use a darker one just to shadow off some of the areas. Put in a few branches. So it does make it easier if you're using that. Just the sun's catching bits of branches there. Okay, so there's the suggestion of the branches, not altogether successful here. So take that down. So those two branches are coming in at the wrong angle, so I'm just going to do that. And if I've got my branch at the wrong angle, I can just put a little bit of foliage over it anyway to try and knock it back a little bit. Okay, so there's the trees in the background. I've kept a little bit of colour in them. The rocks need more work on them just to tidy them up. And again, I could use the pastel pencils if I want to put in some of those sort of darker lines and cracks where the rocks are just having little overhangs and shadowy bits and some little there's quite a lot of it in this one. And the more of those little cracks I put in, the more it's starting to look like rock. So I'm just working in a few more of them and keeping on using this pencil at this point. And the rocks are quite sharp here, they're not like rounded of beach rocks there. They're quite hard and sharp, so I'm putting in very angular lines. And I can do that with a various number of colours. Again, I'm going now in here with a bit of a bluer colour in there, darker sort of colour, because you've got a few different sort of colours going on in the shadows. And these cracks are just fissures that are causing shadows to fall on the rocks. Put a little bit of shadow in that side. It's quite purple there, so I could keep knocking that back a bit if I want, by going over the top of it with another colour, in this case this bluey indigo kind of colour. So just keeping working in there. And the rocks are starting to take shape, and I can keep working on them if I want to do more and more of these little fine lines and keep the work going. So a lot of these shadows in here are being formed by the trees as well, casting their shadows over them, so, but as well as the cracks in themselves in the rocks. So those rocks are sort of looking like rocks. In amongst the rocks is a whole lot of pig face, so I'm just going to pop some of that in with some pinky colours, and I'm just jabbing it on, massing it. It's along the top of the rocks here, coming down through the crevices, right along the top there. And there'll be a muted sort of pink, and then there'll be a brighter pink. Some little dashes where the sun's shining on it. So I'm just using a few different pinks in there for the pig face. And across the top there as well, where the sun's catching on it. And I can use even a very light pink as well, just for extra sparkle from the sun. So apart from the pink of the pig face, there'll be some green of the succulent leaves as well, so I just need to put in a bit of green creeping around underneath it, and some of it will be dark and some of it will be light, because again some of it's in shadow and some of it's just being caught by the light, so just putting in a bit of the greeny there, creeping down through there. There's a whole patch of greenery on this bit here where the soil catches in the crevices and then it starts growing little shrubby bits there. So I'm just putting, not shrubs really, but little bits of vegetation. So I'm putting that in green, and then I'm adding a little bit of warmth with a sort of almost same colour as that background paint that we're using, just to make it not so cold there. So we have the trees gone in, the rocks gone in. These rocks are looking a bit funny because I need to put a darker bit in there for the shadows. So I'm just building in now some shadow bits to make them a little bit more three-dimensional there. And that one needs a bit of shadow coming in there, around under that rock, back into there. I'll just bring the rock cracks sort of down under. So I'm starting to make those rocks a little bit more three-dimensional there. Still don't like them very much, but it's something I can come back to if I wish to. Now I need to put the house in, because then I'll put some vegetation in front of it. And you can't actually see very much of the cottage here, but we know that that side is very warm, so I'm just choosing some warm colours to block in the shape of that chimney. There's the chimney running down there and down there. And it's warm kind of colours. It needs to be lighter than this. I'm just going in with this to start and dragging it down in the shape of that block, and it's got a little, goes up a wee bit higher than that, and a little chimney pot on the top there. So that's the chimney there. I'm just going to use a white to go over that warm colour and get the shape in of the chimney, and then I'll probably warm it up a little bit with this kind of colour. The side of the chimney is dark, it's in shadow, so I'm popping that in with a suggestion of the side of it with a purpley colour. Same over this end, there's a side of it that is in shadow. And I can sharpen those up with a pencil in a minute. I just want to get the colours in. So I use this one for the side. It's still too dark, so I need to move in with a lighter colour as well. And I'm just scrumbling that over the top, so just dragging it over the top, because you want a mix of colours in that brick, that stonework. It's a stone house, so just getting a mix of colours in there. I'm just trying to get that shape in the way it should be, so that's about right. A little bit of warmer colours over it. Some very light purpley colours are going to be used around the other side, which is in shadow. And I'm just pulling that down. That's going to be the shadowed side of the cottage. Shadowed side of the chimneys. And I need to crisp up all those edges there, so I'm just, oops, wrong colour, just going in again with this sort of indigo colour and dragging it across there to make the top of my house, roof, down the edges there, underneath the eaves there to give a bit of shadow. And I'll run it just a bit through the purple of the roof to connect it to those edges that I've used. You can just see a little bit of an edge over on that side as well, and I just want to crisp that up a bit. Okay, I need to go back into there with something lighter, so just popping in. Giving a couple of lines of definition to the chimney there. And now I just want to fix that lighter area there, so I'm just going to go in with light pastel and reinstate the fact that the sunlight is hitting that wall there, hitting the chimney and that wall. So now we get a sense of light hitting it, because I've put a very warm yellowy sort of colour there. Even though the stone cottage is not really yellow, it's sort of amplifying the light on there, especially if I then take the same colour and put a few little hits of it down here on the rocks in a couple of places where I think the sun's probably hitting it, just to bring it a little bit alive there. And the shrubbery here is a lighter green than the shrubbery there, so I'm going to go in with a lighter green to start that all off. And again, just going in a round sort of motion, describing what I'm seeing here. And this is a big round bush here, which I've gone into before, and another, and it sort of comes down like this to meet the other one, just dragging it across. That is one big round bush there. Another one here, some more coming up into there, and then it comes around into more of them here. And I need to put a whole lot of dark down here for the shadows. This is a hedgy bit of, I'm not quite sure what it is, it could be lavender, something like that going along there, and there's just more bushes and shrubs along there, and so just making that round kind of motion gives you a sense of the roundness of the shrubs there. So I've got those in. Now I need to put some darker colours in for it, because there's quite a bit of shadowed area around down here, around the ends of the shrubs. So again, I'm going in that round kind of motion, and as I get down lower in them, it's very much in shadow. More shadow coming in here. So just to give them a bit of shape and a bit of form. This hedge is more upright and not quite so rounded, so I'm just pulling downward strokes there for that. And it's the same on this part of the grasses going around the edge of the road there. They're just very long grasses, so I'm pulling it down like so. I want to put in some more colour in there, and I'm going for some purples in there, just pulling them randomly down as well. And that will go back into these shadows on the shrubs here, and back into the bottom of this hedge rowy bit there. So I'm establishing some shadows in there. This part of it is in shadow as well, so I'm going to build up some shadows there. Although actually I cut that off when I did my thing, so it actually goes sort of across there. So possibly I might put a little bit of shadow there, just so I can have some flowers that aren't in shadow growing out of it. My road needs to be slightly different colour. I put it in this purple, and now I just want to blue it off a little bit. So I'll just take a bluer colour and try and get a bit of that in. Just a faint hint of it going there behind that hedge. And even knock that back a bit further. So I take even a lighter blue up here on the corner where the sun's hitting it through those shrubs. It's going to be quite light. So that's where the light's hitting the road, and we've got some shadows coming in on that side from the shrubbery. I can make those shadows a little bit deeper. I put them in with a purple, and they're sort of running back into the grasses, out into the road. So I put them in with purple, but I can give them a bit of blue as well because it's on the blue road surface. So I'm just mixing up the colours in those shadows there to get me a little bit of variety, and they're quite deep where the grasses meet the road. Then over this side, there's a little, I need to put some more of the grasses in it, and a very sort of dried up grassy strip there. So I'm just putting, that's quite light there, where the sunlight's hitting it again. And there's a little suggestion of it sort of through here where there's a little gap in and the sun's coming through. Sort of along the edges of the road. I need to put some more grasses in there, and that's going to again be that pulling down motion. I'm making these grasses a bit more yellow, putting some in the field back there over the top of the greens I've got in. as they come forward, they're yellowing up a bit and getting a bit of... So I'm pulling a bit of that yellow into these grasses here as well, the tops that aren't in shadow, and that's just warming that all up a bit. This shrub's got some flowers on it too. I'm going to put a little more different green in there, just slightly lighter than the other greens, just for, again, for a little bit of variety. Probably not as dark as it should be, so in goes a few more darks, but leaving a touch of those lighter colours I put in. So along there, it's pulling down into the shadows. You can see how those little touches of sunlight there really lighten up the whole painting. And I could even put a little touch of that on a few places here on the rocks to warm it up even a bit more on those rocks. I don't want to do too much more to that, but I do want to just drop in a few lighter notes here and a few of the flowers. So I can't drop them in white, they'll be too stark, so they need to be either a little on the pink side or a little on the blue side, and I'm going for sort of some bluey white dots down here for the flowers there, but I'll mix them in with a few warmer pinky ones where the sun's hitting them. So there's the little flowers there in that garden, part of the garden, and then there's some Queen Anne's lace over here, and that's going in with a almost white. So they're going to go in with these round tumble sort of shapes. Trying to curve them a little bit as Queen Anne's lace does. Just put a few suggestions of them over there. And I need some more grasses coming up through there. So I'll be laying in a few of the warmer grasses, just pulling up into the greens. A few of them coming out of there. And a few of the really light grasses as well, where the light's catching them as they come up out of the purple there, a few around that area there. I feel it could do with a bit more dark in there, but I actually am just going to give this area a little bit more purple. Just pull it up a little bit more. And then have these grasses coming around here. And over in the corner a little bit more shadow, just because I don't want the painting to sort of fall out the corner there, so I'll make that a little bit darker there. A few shadows coming in there. And to reinforce that shadowed area, I could put in those Queen Anne's lace quite a bit darker than the other blues that I've done there. So the more white over here, they're a little bit bluer there. I could also, if I wanted to warm it up a little bit, just put in a few buttercuppy kind of dandelion jabs, and they're just done randomly with the sharp sort of jagged edge with my... I quite like those in there. They're just giving it that little something extra. Not in the photo, but I wanted to up the colour a little bit. So there it is, Brittany in the early morning with the sun shining in on the cottage, the side of the rocks, a few dappled areas of light in on the grasses there. I could make that even slightly lighter than it is, if I could find something slightly lighter. This is a bit lighter. That's quite a lot lighter. Just to put a few... I don't like that, so I'm just knocking it out again. I could put that one in. Just to suggest a little bit of light coming through onto it. It probably should be a bit yellower though to suggest the light coming on it. And maybe if I was to use a little bit of yellow on the side of those bushes, it might actually convince us more that there was some light hitting the side of them there. And the tops of them there. Okay, that's all done. I could just... It's never all done, is it, till you put down. I just want to make that a bit lighter back there for the sun coming through on it. Okay, now it's done. And then I'll just need to sign it, and I'll just pop a little signature down in this area here. Thanks for joining me again today in the studio. I'll see you next time, and next time I'm going to be painting a mountain scene, so join me for that.